Welcome to Voice with Vielka, the podcast dedicated to the ongoing quest for finding how to best teach kids to sing with confidence. I'm your host, Vielka, and I'll share my experiences as a performer, educator, founder, and mother for the last 20 years here in the heart of New York City. Thank you for joining me as I share with you the amazing people, practices, and talking points to help us grow together as singers, educators, entrepreneurs, and human beings. Have you ever thought of yourself as a coach? Working with young singers, I'm always thinking about that coaching perspective. And of course, we have vocal coaches as part of our profession. And we also work with teens. And I don't know about you, but sometimes working with teens can be challenging or a lot of questions come up. And especially because even though I've been working with teens for over 20 years, it will be my first time working with teens in 2022, as it is every year. That, time evolves, and so do our teenagers and what it's like for them today. So I'm absolutely thrilled, super grateful to have with us someone who really specializes in this niche of both coaching and working with teens. Her name is Kate Gladdin. So a little bit about Kate before we get to have a conversation with her. Kate describes herself as being from a broken-hearted sister battling an eating disorder to one of Australia's 100 women of influence. Kate Gladdin is living proof that what doesn't kill us can make us stronger. She's an international youth speaker, certified life coach, teen resilience specialist, and published author. Through her school talks, online coaching, and podcast show, Okay Now What?, Kate helped more than 200,000 students build the social and emotional skills they need to become more resilient and better handle unexpected challenges in life. For her dedication to helping youth, Kate has been featured on Ariana Huffington's site, Thrive, and named one of Tourism Fiji's Billionaires, a title that celebrates those rich in positivity and resilience. Originally from Sydney, Australia, Kate now lives happily in New Jersey with her fiancé. Her favorite things include homemade pizza and playing with her puppy, Jaku. So welcome, Kate. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's always a little bit awkward and humbling and all that, hearing your own introduction read back to you. But I really appreciate just everything you're doing and feel honored to be a part of your show.
Well, thank you. And the feeling is obviously mutual here. I'm super grateful to have you with us and give us a little insight into an area of our work where we don't usually get a lot of information around it. So we're kind of trusted to go in there and go with some big ideas, and we're hoping to get out of this conversation, a window into your world, and then better understand how we can borrow some ideas that, approaches, strategies that you use, and how that might help influence our own work. So why don't we start out by having you just kind of share with us, what's your story? Like, how did you get here? How'd you get into doing podcasts and being specialized with teens and life coach and resiliency?
Yeah, well, I always sum it up by just wanting to be who I needed when I was younger. So I work with teenagers not because I was a thriving teen who had it all sorted out. In fact, it was quite the opposite. And it wasn't initially, as a teen, I had a great life. I had a family who loved me and provided for me, but I put a lot of unrealistic expectations and standards on myself. You might see that with some of your students, perfectionists, overthinkers, the anxiety that often creates and the self-sabotage that often creates. So that was kind of me, a bit of a stress head, a little bit reactive to life. I like to say I was mentally fragile at best. But, like someone else's opinion or losing my tennis match just used to cripple me, and all the negative self-talk. But I kind of just thought, that's the way I am. This is who I am. I'll just climb the corporate ladder and be the high achiever and all that kind of thing. But what really, I guess, put me on the path that I'm now on wanting to work through that, on wanting to enjoy being me and live a meaningful life, was when I was just about to, as I was graduating university, my amazing big sister, Nicole, was killed in a motorbike accident over in Thailand when she was just 24 years old. And that completely shattered me. But it was the worst, and in some ways one of the best things, because of how my sister had lived her life. She was such a gift and gave me so much to live for, that I was like, I am done being this girl. Like, I want to learn how to live now for my sister and for Ryan, so I can honor her, but also leave behind a legacy that I'm proud of by contributing to something greater than myself. So condensing nearly 10 years now of stuff into like a couple more sentences. So from that, I quit my corporate job and I began speaking at high schools around Australia about travel safety, because my sister died taking a risk. Like, she wasn't wearing a helmet on a motorbike, something she'd never do back in Australia. And I thought, if I can just save one family, especially as an Aussie dies over in Southeast Asia every 17 hours, I was like, I need to do something. Yeah, that's how I just saw your face.
Yeah, I mean, hold up. What? I was not expecting that at all.
So Southeast Asia is quite close to Australia, and a lot of young tourists, when we finish school, like young students, go on something called like schoolies, where you celebrate finishing school with your friends. And it's a very popular kind of place. Bali, Thailand, it's kind of cheap, it's somewhat close, but there's a very different safety standard. It's kind of like, I guess, what you see in Mexico over here or something, where you seem to just get complacent and think it won't happen to me, and you start doing risks that you wouldn't normally take in your everyday life. And the problem is, concrete is just as hard no matter where you are in the world. And, you know, if you're in an accident overseas in a foreign country, it's so complex and hard. And so I just thought, if I can save one family from going through what we've been through, it's totally worth it. Because I know, had my sister heard her story, she never would have got on the bike. She would have made a different choice. And I've always loved the quote that, you know, resilience isn't about fighting the old, it's about building the new. So my family, we created a charity in her honor. We actually help performers and sports people with grants who are struggling through adversity themselves. So this kind of links up with what your passion is, with, you know, singing and everything. But yeah, I started speaking about travel safety, and it was having such an impact on the kids who were saying, I'd never be able to do what you do and be so strong through something like that. And that's when I was like, no, I have to do something to show them that resilience is a skill, or a skill set that we can all learn and develop and get better at. Because I know I certainly wasn't born with it, but I've learned and grown so much. And now I just love teaching all our young people everything I've learned along the way, so they can do the same.
Well, I have so many questions, but first I just want to acknowledge, you know, I'm really sorry for your family's loss. And how old were you when your sister passed?
I just turned 20. So yeah, and she was 24. So we were super close.
Oh my gosh. And since you mentioned the charity, you know, that you've created in her honor, does that mean that she had some sort of passion for the arts and sports, or what's
Oh
the
my
connection there?
goodness.
Tell us a little bit about her, because she was such a big influence for you. So yeah, I'm curious.
I would wake up to the sound of my sister's feet like tapping on the kitchen floor. Like, she was born a dancer. You could never keep her still, even if you tried. And you'd always kind of hear her before you would see her, like with that loud voice as well. Whether she wasn't tapping her feet, she'd be singing. She actually, in her final years, began to learn she started doing singing classes, because she went to like an all-round performing arts school after she danced in New Zealand ballet for 6 months, and then came back and went to a performing arts school to kind of get prepped to dance on like cruise ships and things like that. From there, she got a gig with Tokyo Disneyland. So she danced for 8 months as one of the characters on stage in Tokyo Disney. So she was like Wendy and Snow White, and got to do all that, which seeing her dance, I was always the proudest sister in the world. I loved watching her light up the stage. But through her journey, like I said, we were quite fortunate that mum and dad were able to afford, you know, driving to the estate, like the dance competitions and the equipment, and getting to do this workshop here and that workshop there. But my sister, you know, she began to hang out with people who didn't have those same opportunities. And she'd be like, they are some of the most talented people you'd ever see, but they're not getting the opportunities I am simply because they can't afford it. So when, just after she passed away and like the week we were organizing her memorial, we were just getting so many flowers and we're like, we want to put this money towards something that is going to greater honor Nicole rather than get, 7 million bunches of flowers. So we just thought, okay, we'll start the Nicole Fitzsimons Foundation and just collect donations to help other struggling performers and sports people. And it was kind of from there that this whole charity evolved. And then when I began researching into this travel safety side, that's where I kind of also put together that goal of the foundation as well. But yes, my sister lived and breathed performing and dancing and everything. So we wanted to keep that alive.
Well, what an incredible legacy and tribute. Yeah. And I see how alive she still is through you and your work and your family. So that's incredible. Going back to the fact that, resiliency and getting through it and who you were, that you were sort of a messy teenager and how you're getting through it. Maybe share with us a little bit about how did you learn the tools? Where did you turn? Because I think that's such a big question is, we kind of know like the teenage years are hard and there's a lot of mental health issues and there's a lot, going on. And we sort of expect that. And, as a teacher, I think we're aware of it. And at the same time, we're not really given a lot of tools or even direction of, well, where do you go to find answers outside of like therapy or, something as a teacher in the room, like obviously that's not my profession, not my place, but something that can give us a little insight of.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I think my circumstances were a little different. Like I coach with teens that aren't going through any like extreme trauma, but just dealing with like the day-to-day stuff, which
is traumatic, right? I mean, sorry to interrupt. I'm just saying, yeah, let me clarify here. I feel like just being a teenager is like a level of, trauma.
Just ask him.
Not to be disrespectful to, the capital T trauma, which of course, I'm going to be mindful of that. But also to say that there is a special, as with every age, like preschoolers, I think, oh my gosh, just going to school and coming out into the world in that way, it's huge. It's their whole world. And so I have that sort of mindset on as I'm listening to you, thinking about our teenagers and how so much change is happening for them so quickly. It's such a volatile age. So with those lenses.
Every human desires a sense of connection and belonging, but it's really heightened in their teen years. And the other thing that is so tough about being a teenager is they're beginning to become more socially aware and like self-conscious and stuff, but their brain's still developing, right? Their prefrontal lobe is only just starting to come online and develop. So our ability to pause, rationalize things out, see bigger picture, for them, they can still very easily get caught up in the moment, in the heat of things, in what I call our ants, which is our automatic negative thoughts. So they are definitely a big work in progress, but something that I feel it's such an honor to be able to support them through and teach them. And for me, I feel like just like the love I had for my sister gave me such a strong reason why to keep going, but there were the basic things that I did. And I didn't know, I think I kind of almost did them instinctually because I was like, I need to ensure I'm getting out of bed each day in the beginning. But it was the little practices of gratitude, of allowing myself to feel my feelings and feel my grief through. I was good at like just letting it out. Some people try and numb it out or avoid it. And of course that has carry on effects. So a big part of what I speak with teens about, as much as I'm helping them manage their thoughts, change their perspectives, a big part of it is just normalizing the struggle a little and how to feel our feelings without fear and resistance. As awful as they are, every emotion has a shelf life. So helping them make space for what it now has always meant, but we are forgetting more than ever, what it means to be a human being. We're not wired for constant happiness or, constant positivity. And I think that I feel so much for teenagers these days because their expectation of that is getting morphed by social media and instantness and perfection and filtering everything, to look a certain way, that we're forgetting that humans are made to feel all of the feelings. So I think that's a big part of how we can coach teenagers through. And I think even like with your voice work that you do and with the singing, like I talk to students about the upside of stress as well, how stress gets a very bad name, but the performance anxiety you can feel in a way is actually there to serve you if you change your relationship with it.
Oh, well, I feel like there are so many, there's so much gold in this conversation. So I want to just kind of connect some of the dots here, which is for me, and for those listening, I'm hoping that you're hearing from Kate really that first off, that feeling feelings is really crucial, right? That we aren't machines, and that really just acknowledging your emotions. And it sounds like you really gave yourself the space to fully feel without numbing, without other things, just feeling the feeling. And of course, as singers and performers, I mean, so much of our training is really getting in touch with your feelings personally, who you are, and then who your character is. So you're learning how to empathize, kind of find yourself in the character, put on a different lens. But it really is so much of what I refer to as a feeling journey when I'm thinking about a piece of music, in that there's a want or a wish, right? And then from the beginning to the end, there's a journey that we're not just happy. Even in a happy song, we're not just happy. And that this also is a mirror of life, right? That we're not just happy nonstop, but actually there can be moments of bitterness or sadness that maybe even allow the happiest to get higher or more appreciated, or that there is this medley of feelings. And I think that's really important to think about for ourselves as teachers, and allowing and creating space for that to come out. And then of course there's the technical side of we're actually doing something like an athlete with our bodies, and there are going to be feelings about that and the frustrations that may come up, and just allowing those to play out too. As teachers, as coaches, I'm assuming we really need to create a safe space for them to allow these emotions to come in our shared time together. So do you have any strategies or things that you think about in terms of how do we help create that space, especially for a mind of a teenager?
Yeah. I think like for me, I've always got to like drop my own agenda as much as possible, or my own biases or expectations of how I think they should or shouldn't be feeling or thinking. Naturally I have my own thoughts sometimes. And I think it's like being willing to sit in the discomfort with them. Like so many of us just want to fix and make them happy again or feel confident again. But if you're willing, like I think some of my friends did this so beautifully for me when I was very much deep in my grief right after losing my sister. They would just be there without trying to make me feel, but they let me feel my grief through. And so I think like it was such a gift they gave me. So when I'm coaching with a teen and I can see they're struggling with something, like sometimes, I'm just like, I'm watching them and I'm letting them feel it through, and I'm not like trying to interject too quickly. If they're just like kind of crying or just letting something off their chest. But then I think the next step is always to empathize. Like, okay, we're adults now. Sometimes what to them is like the end of the world. We're like, okay, come on, like really try not to like judge or belittle or anything like that or invalidate instantly. It's, you know what? I get it. I've felt that way before. And I genuinely try and think of an example maybe that I can share where they can realize that it's not just them or there's something wrong with them, even though we can see like, nah, really, but like just totally try and put yourself in their shoes, which we're always trying to encourage our teenagers to do for others. So I think empathize and validate a little, like it makes sense. And the one thing I do, so as a coach, like I believe a big part of resilience is staying focused on what you can control. And what I'm always trying to teach teens, at the end of the day, that's our response, what we choose to focus on, the way we choose to interpret things. So I try and just be mindful, like when, like rather than like, oh, when that happens, then I feel that. I'm like, when that happens, sometimes my brain wants to tell me that as well. So I'm just like acknowledging that it isn't just like the thoughts, and it doesn't mean that it's not a real thing we've got to deal with, but I just try and give them some power back in the situation. So we're not delegating that to the outside world and then they feel completely helpless. I'm like, it makes sense that you're thinking that. Like I do too. So I feel like once I can greet them with some empathy and compassion and some of my own experience, then I feel like they feel safe enough for us to then begin to explore, okay, what options do we feel like we have here? Like do you want me to suggest some things that have helped for me? Like you almost ask their permission before we're just like trying to change their mind. But yeah, that's some of the things that I've found helpful in coaching.
These are really great tips and perspectives. And I especially loved when you said dropping the agenda. I felt like that really resonated for me, especially because coming from a classical singing background, so many of my teachers had a very clear agenda. And I know that they wanted the best for me and that it was packaged in a certain way most of the time, really from their perspective. And they had their list of what to go through. And I was always sort of catering to that. Whereas I think, what I'm hearing you say is when we drop the agenda and validate and empathize, that actually gives them the space to feel safe and also to take ownership of their own process so that when they are ready for change or, in making the adjustment, that they feel like they're in control, that they're driving it, and then how much better of an experience is it for them? How positive is it? And how ultimately empowering, like you said, which is huge. I wanted to dig in a little bit because I feel like I myself, I probably have confessed this before. When I first heard the term life coach, first off, it was a long time ago, and it's not how it is now, where I feel like there's a lot more life coaches and awareness around life coaches now. But when I first heard about it, it was like, what's that? Like, what's that even mean? And yeah, a lot of mixed messages about it. So I'm wondering if you just can maybe, for those who are listening and don't really know what a life coach does, can you just kind of give us a little summary and background with that?
Oh, such a good question. And there is a lot of, I guess, misconceptions or maybe, I guess, mixed experiences maybe around life coaches. For me, it's kind of like what you mentioned in the intro. Like I'm really focused on helping them build the social and emotional skills that I believe lead to resilience. So it's the like EQ stuff, like emotional intelligence, emotional awareness. And then there's the practical stuff, everything from, the organizational skills and overcoming procrastination is the biggest one I'm usually working with teenagers on. But it's all the stuff that I think school leaves off the syllabus, which is often called like the soft skills. But to me, they're some of the hardest skills you have to build up in life. So I don't know why they're called the soft skills, but all the invisible skills that goes beyond the intelligence stuff that at school often focuses on. For me, my work is often helping teens redefine mental health as well. I think a lot of teens have an all or nothing mentality with how they think or feel. It's like I'm either completely depressed or I'm happy. And then they're like, I had an off day. I don't know what's wrong. And so for me, as I said, a big part is like exploring what it means to be a human being. I'd love to teach about some of the automatic parts of our brain and why we think and feel certain ways so they understand they're not flaws about what they're doing, but features about being human. And then from that place of self-acceptance, then we can change. Because I feel like a lot of teens have so much self-judgment and self-loathing, and they think they know I should be thinking positively, but my brain wants to go here and what's wrong with me? And so there's a lot of drama with that. So I honestly, I think the fun thing about being a life coach is that some people see it as like a quote unquote weakness, that it's not a regulated, I guess, or industry like psychologist or something. But for me, that.
Or voice teachers, FYI.
Oh, really? There you go. Okay. So I think it just brings so much freedom, though, to bring me to my coaching program because I don't have so much regulation. Of course, I self-regulate within my own criteria of what I want to focus on and what's appropriate, but I really get to build up rapport with my students. I keep in touch with them via text in between sessions. I check in on them. They get to know me. They know I'm so far from perfect. So I'm just a few steps ahead in the journey. But we all get to bring our own, I guess, personalities and preferences and ideas to the coaching. But for me, at the end of my like coaching with a student, I just like I know I've done my job if I see that they're better able to respond and handle setbacks and stresses in life. You know, the things that used to derail them, they're still going to struggle, but they know how to get themselves back on track quicker than they did before.
Yeah, it's fantastic work, and I'm so happy you're out there doing it. I really appreciate all your references to the brain. I actually love it because it does give a sense that, like, well, there's just this mechanical sort of setup and hardwiring of how we work as humans, and it's no one's fault. It just is, like the brain. So every time you kind of referred to it as the brain, it was really interesting because it created this separation of sort of our feelings and then how it works. So it gives this implication and I guess opens the door to, we can make choices about how we respond, what we give it, and then have different outcomes based on that. So I love that you're using that language and that sort of that mindset. I'm also curious, just for my last kind of question on this part is, how would it different how would it be different from therapy? Because I think that's a big question that comes up too, is like life coach versus therapist. Like what's the difference?
Firstly, it's just like the big obvious one. Like I haven't gone and done a psychology degree anywhere. So, it's for some people that official stuff matters, and that's totally fine. I feel like I've done my own little mini degree with everything I research on my own. I just find the brain and psychology endlessly fascinating. I mean, it would vary coach to coach. I feel like I'm not doing as much diving too deep into the past or childhood or like any of those like deeper issues. Coaching is a little more future focused, action oriented. Like I said, I like to look at like helping them understand maybe why they're doing some of those things. And a big part is because this is what the brain likes to do. It fears uncertainty. It has a negativity bias. It has a confirmation bias, like teaching them about that stuff. I feel like mine integrates a little bit of like the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy, like making space for the discomfort, but then recommitting to your values and goals along the way. But I think the biggest thing is like as a coach, personally for me and from feedback I get from students and parents is I'm not just letting the teen talk and talk and talk and talk about the same story and the past. I'm trying to then redirect them to the future and teach them tools and strategies to help them cope with where they're at or grow past. And some coaching is also just completely goal focused. It's not even about they're coming to me with a particular problem. It's like I've got this goal and I want to get there and grow into my potential to achieve it. So yeah, that's like the biggest thing. Like some parents are just like, I feel like my teen's just retelling and living in the past a little much. Like there's definitely, especially if there's any sort of trauma or healing that needs to happen, having a safe place to tell your story and to have someone there to guide you through it is very powerful. But I have people who have both a therapist and me as a coach. So there's space for both, I believe.
Oh, I definitely think there's space for both. And I know I've experienced both. And I really, like I said, I used to be kind of skeptical, like, what is this? And then when I experienced it, I was like, oh, wow, this is really awesome. And I think it's because of what you said and that it's very future focused. It really is empowering you with tools and strategies to get to goals. And it's not necessarily that you're trying to overcome some, issue or event so much as like where you want to go and how you want to design your life. So, definitely I'm appreciative that there are people like you out there doing this kind of work. I asked you for a mini playlist inspired by Brene Brown's, and because we're singers and yeah, music people over here. So you gave me 5 songs. Oh my goodness, I'm not even going to know how to pronounce the first one. Your sister's favorite song.
Okay, so it's called Kei-san. Kei-san by Cole Chisel. One of the main singers is Jimmy Barnes, who was like her favorite artist. But at the end of every charity event that we have for Nicole, that's the final song. So people like hear the first few keys of that song and everyone runs to dance, no matter like we'll have hundreds of people just run. And then my family and I always get up on stage and we all sing it together. I'm still learning the lyrics, bad on me. It's got random lyrics. I'm still learning, but just the beat of it, like there's just this start of it, and it always like gives me the goosebumps. We dance our little hearts out, and I sing, and I'm dancing and I'm crying all at once when I hear that song come on at her events. And I think that's just such a metaphor for life. You know, you're singing and you're crying and dancing all at once, and I think it proves to you that you can do both, right? You can hurt and struggle and still grow and get on the dance floor and take the meaningful action. So I love that song.
Oh my gosh, that is so special. I'm teary-eyed over here, especially as a singer and voice teacher, right? Because I think that that's my hook, right? Like I'm hooked on the power of music and of singing and how it really does, you know, transcend so many boundaries and experiences and bring us together in a special way. The fact that you have this song that, is embracing her and your family and everyone in the audience, it's so special. And kind of going back to earlier in our conversation about how, allowing again, like the space for your emotions to come through. It's so beautiful. That's wonderful. You also had on your list I Lived by One Republic, Happy by Leona Lewis, Mint Condition by Caroline Spence, and Happy by Pharrell Williams.
Very different kind of happy songs, but I love them both.
So how would you say that these, this little playlist sort of describes you, or what does it say about you?
Okay. So, well, the first one, like I am a sentimental person. So obviously I had to start with Nicole. Like that's always my number one. She's my reason why. She's at the heartbeat of everything that I do today. So that had to come first. I Lived, I think just sums up everything I want my life to stand for. I don't know if you've ever heard the lyrics to I Lived. Like it's just like I lived, I did it all. I took every risk and everything. So it's just everything that I want my life to stand for. And I listen to it when I need to pick me up, when I'm feeling down. And that's like one of the like pick me ups, but in a meaningful way. Happy, I think, was next by Leona Lewis. I loved that song and I really connect with it because I had to do throughout my life to get my career to where it is today. I've had to do things where people have told me things like, what if you fail? What if you do this? Like they thought I was crazy for doing it. And I'm like, you know what? I love the lyrics again. I'm a lyric person more than anything. So she just, again, it connects with me. It hits deep of all those times people doubted me and I just had to trust in myself and trust that it was leading to my own version of happiness and meaning in life. Mint Condition is a song that my fiance and I heard together a couple of years ago, just before the pandemic. Carolyn Spence is a beautiful singer-songwriter. So we're now going to get married in December to that song. My sister's beautiful friend Lyndall's going to sing that song as I walk down the aisle in Australia in December. But the lyrics are really beautiful between Nate and I. It's about keeping your love in mint condition, regardless of, how long it's been. But there's a lyric in there that says, I might have to learn how to live here alone, but I'll love you through ash or through stone. And for me, that really, hit home because I want to place a flower. My sister and I promised each other when we were young we'd be each other's bridesmaids. So at that moment, I just know I felt like that's a little line in there for her as well on our special day. And then the last one, Happy by Pharrell Williams, is simply when you just need to throw a song on and shake your booty and let it all out. I love it, like those happy kind of just put it on when you just want to dance. So that's me. I have a crazy side.
I love it. I love your crazy side, your sentimental side. Oh my gosh, I'm tearing up so many times in this interview because there are so many beautiful moments that you've shared with us, and I'm super grateful. We're going to do a quick rapid fire round.
Oh, I'm ready.
Don't overthink it. First word that comes to mind, it's okay. Yeah. So singing is
not my strong point. That's all I have to say.
And you know that I have to say that if you want to, you can. If you can talk, you can sing, and it's there for you.
I'll coach myself through that one, right? Singing isn't my strong point yet.
Oh my gosh. And you'll have to listen to our podcast with Peggy Rickus, who did a whole talk with us on our team about the power of yet. So yeah, 100%. Teaching is blank. Fill in the blank.
Like my calling, I feel like I love teaching. So yeah, again, a gift, a calling.
Okay, you're nervous walking on stage. What's the first thing you do?
Breathe.
You're home alone. What piece of music do you love? Well, I had perform, but you could just be listening to when no one's listening, and why?
Oh, I have my playlist called Move Me, and it's just anything on that. I'd hit the shuffle button. It's like all those kind of songs. So that's my rapid fire answer.
Nice. What's an example of something ordinary you find extraordinary that you're grateful for?
Oh, JQ cuddles.
And finally, we are celebrating you, and the sky's the limit. How do you want to celebrate?
Immediately, family and like it was a visual of just being surrounded by family and friends because I obviously live away from family. So if I could get everyone together in one room, that would be my like celebration of just having all my people I care about together with my favorite playlist playing. That would be it. So yeah.
I'm so excited for you because it sounds like that's what will be happening for you in December. And I just wish you a wonderful wedding where you have that feeling of being surrounded by family and friends. And I'm so, so grateful for your time today and sharing your expertise, your experience with us so that we can pour more love and energy and empowerment into our students as they're learning and for our teachers too. So I just want to point out to everybody and remind you, and we'll have it in the show notes, that Kate has an amazing podcast. I've listened to several episodes, and it's really wonderful to get such a fresh perspective of, what's on people's minds and what are different ways to go about it. So I highly recommend it. And we'll have that below. And I want to make sure I have the title correct here. It is
Okay, now what?
Which I love this title. Okay, now what? It's the perfect
like, okay,
title.
This is life. What am I meant to do now? I'd love for people to join me on my podcast. I have a lot of fun on there, and I definitely geek out about the brain and all things psychology and that too.
Fantastic. And you have some podcast shows that are for teenagers, but also some for parents, right?
Yes, I recently launched the parents show as well because any parent that raising a teenager can always do with some extra support during some time. So yeah, I've got the two shows on there, and then there's just some different resources on my website as well. So if anyone's interested, make sure you check it out.
Yeah, and Kate's website is kategladen.com. That's with an I at the end. And we'll have it here. And again, thank you so much. I really feel like, I learned a lot about you and a lot about how I can be thinking more in terms of coaching, offering, dropping of my agenda, centering myself, being even more empathetic and validating in our work. And I know it's going to help influence many, many people. So I'm so grateful, and I wish you all the best. And I'm just very grateful. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I love being here.
Thank you for joining me for this podcast. To learn more about my step-by-step approach to voice education, where I've consolidated 30 years of vocal study into 4 words even a 3-year-old can do, just go to www.vielka.com. That's Vielka.com. Happy singing!